and people would shout back, awake and ready. How is everyone? He knew he couldn't speak unless there was energy. So now we've got some energy going. Let's say a prayer together. Heavenly Father, Divine Mother, friend, beloved God, great masters, Jesus Christ, Babaji Krishna, Lahiri Mahashaya, Swami Sri Yukteswar, beloved Master, Paramahansa Yogananda, saints of all religions, we humbly bow to you all. Beloved Lord, help uplift the consciousness of this world, starting with our own consciousness. Let us live in thy light, in thy love, and in thy joy. And let us be channels to share those qualities with everyone. Om. Peace. Amen. Okay, now you can sit down.
So, good morning, everyone. In case you missed the introduction, I'm Nayaswami Devi. This is Nayaswami Jyotish. And thank you all for, first of all, thanks to all of our members and Sangha down in the greater Los Angeles area for organizing this event and all the effort it went into putting it on. Thanks to our friends from Ananda Village who drove down to be a part of this, to help put it on. Thanks to our friend Ricardo, who came all the way from Assisi to be here and bring his incredible music. And thanks to all of you who have come in this glorious rainy weather. You know, it's so odd because every year when we do the Yogananda Fest, it can be sunny, 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 and then it pours rain on the Yogananda Fest. But I think it's God's blessing. So let's just take it that way. So Paramahansa Yogananda, we're celebrating with this Yogananda Fest the life of this great soul that came with an incredible mission to change human consciousness. In his beautiful poem that he wrote called When I Am Only a Dream, he begins with these words, I come to tell you all of him and the way to encase him in your bosom and the discipline that brings his grace. And that's what he brought to all of us. He was born in India, in a small town in northern India, Gorakhpur, in 1893. He came to the West at the behest of his guru, Swami Sri Yukteswar. He came in 1920. And a time right at the end of World War I, a time of tumultuous upheaval in the world. And he came on the first ship to leave India after the war to come to the West, interestingly titled The City of Sparta. Because as you may know, Sparta was a city of great warriors, and Yogananda, if nothing else, was a great spiritual warrior. And the first talk he gave as part of his public mission was on that ship, and the title was The Battle of Life and How to Fight It. That's what he brought, the wave that he brought. And he came then, he was invited by a spiritual organization in Boston, the Congress of Religious Liberals. And the first talk he gave there was The Science of Religion. And those two talks, actually the titles, very much formed what he brought, because the battle of life, that was his first talk in English. He knew English very poorly. And then he said he got up there and he froze. And then he just, in the audience started, 10 minutes went by and the audience started getting a little restless and knowing that it started laughing. And then he heard his guru's voice saying, "You can speak in English." And then he gave this talk for over an hour. He said he didn't even remember what he had said. But the battle of life and how to fight it, that's what each of us have, our own battle to fight. And we have to learn how to fight it. We all have different karmic patterns, different tests that we need to face. And each one of us has to figure out, why do we have to fight the battle? How? He told us, but why? If we want to be happy, it's as simple as that. Life is, look at, we have this day that they've planned for months and months. You wake up, it's pouring rain. You can either say, "Oh, what a bummer," or you can say, "Let's make it a happy day." We have a choice, and that's the battle of life, to choose the highest response to whatever comes in life. Swami Kriyananda was our teacher for more than 40 years, a direct disciple of Yogananda, and he had poor health through never really from when we met him. He always had one health crisis after another, and over time it became worse and worse, but he never stopped serving. He would get out of bed with the flu and a fever. If he had a talk to give, he'd give a magnificent talk. And once when he was in India, we started to work there in 2003, and he lived there for the last years of his life till he passed in 2013. He went into kidney failure, and they had to take him to this hospital and give him dialysis, and it was quite critical. We didn't know if he was going to make it or not. And we called up the woman who helped him, his nurse, and we said, "How's Swami doing?" And she said, "Well, I'm in the hospital room with him right now. Would you like to talk with him?" And we said, "Yes, if we can, that would be wonderful." And so he got on the phone, and he had all the tubes for dialysis and fluids going in, and all these tubes all surrounding him. And we said, "Swamiji, how are you?" And he said, "Well, they tell me I look like a plate of pasta with all the tubes all around me." That was his response. And we knew him through tests and trials and obstacles, and always choosing the battle of life and how to find it. And then the second talk he gave, The Science of Religion. That was the first book he wrote as well. He wrote his great classic, well, really two, this Autobiography of a Yogi, which has been translated into over 30 languages and has changed the lives of probably all of us, many of us sitting here. But then The Science of Religion was the second book he wrote after giving his talk. And that's really what yoga is. Yes, it's postures and asanas, but it's the science of religion. It's not, because you read the stories about what's going on in the churches in America now, their attendance is dropping and dropping and dropping because people aren't interested in dogma, in rituals. They want, and Master knew this in coming to the West, they want something effective to do to change their consciousness. And that's the science of religion. That's what, it's not just, well, please believe this and do this every day and God will come to you at the end of life. No, yoga was developed in India by great men and women of spiritual depth, and they developed techniques to change and uplift our consciousness. And Jyotish and I, my husband and I, have been part of Ananda for many years. I'm getting hesitant to say how many anymore, but we have seen everyone, without exception, who practices yoga and meditation regularly, their lives are changed. Their lives are improved. They're able to fight the battle of life and win in the end. But those two aspects, how to fight the battle and the practicing religion as a science with techniques and tools and understanding the mechanisms through which our consciousness is changed. And when you read about the history of what Master did after he arrived in 1920, it's really amazing. He came, in fact, a friend of ours from Boston, he's a Russian immigrant, came to this country alone, probably 25 years ago, and has made a very nice life for himself subsequently. He said, I came as an immigrant and landed in Boston. I wanted to know about how my guru came. And so he went to the maritime records in Boston and found that ship's manifest for the city of Sparta when it docked in September 1920 in Boston. And there's the list of all the passengers, these people from England, these people from different countries and children and so forth. And there's Mukundalal Ghosh. That was his name, his birth name. He was from India. If for those of you who read the autobiography of a yogi, there's a chapter where he has a boil on his arm. His sister has a boil and he gets one. Any distinguishing marks, small scar on the right forearm. That distinguishing Yogananda. And any affiliations, no. How much money did he have? $500 that his father gave him to come over. And there he landed without he was invited by this organization, but he knew no one in America. And in a matter of a few years, he was traveling back and forth across America, lecturing to crowds of thousands. Someone recently sent me someone from Cincinnati, Ohio, the story of Yogananda's time in Cincinnati, Ohio in 1926. He was the most popular lecturer ever to come to that city. He drew the largest crowds ever. He spoke in the biggest lecture hall. For 1 month, he had not 30, not 300. He had 3,000 people every night for 1 month. And they were so impressed with him. The Cincinnati Enquirer, the major newspaper of the city, would send a reporter every night because people were being turned away. He'd send a reporter to take notes and they'd publish whatever talk he gave the next day in the newspaper. And then, so he did that for a month. And the topics he understood, this was in the 1920s, the roaring 20s in America, prohibition, just a wild time. Here he comes to change the consciousness of the world, really. But he understood you have to reach people where they are. So the topics were things like how to draw success in your business, how to draw an ideal life partner, how to find eternal youth, things that would appeal to the consciousness of Americans at that time. He did it for a month. And then after a month, he said, now I will teach meditation and prepare people for Kriya Yoga. So he sifted and winnowed, I think is the word, and just who was interested in deeper teachings. And then finally, there was a core of people that he trained in the science of yoga. And this is back and forth across the country doing this. And he was a fully realized being. He was and souls like him are beyond time. So they're not defined by the time or the place in which they're born. He was so far ahead of his time. And in fact, I think his teachings are more relevant today than they were even during his lifetime. He passed in 1952. But as the world evolves, as the kind of tension and divisions and separation of the world evolves, he brought a message of unity, of world brotherhood, of the possibility of all people, despite culture or religion or race, all people are united. Someone gave us an original copy of the book, The Science of, it was Songs of the Soul, his book of poems that he wrote later. And it was inscribed by him. It was 1924, and he inscribed it. He was still Swami Yogananda at the time. And in it he wrote, there is one breath that blows in all lands. We are all brothers and sisters. We are all children of the one God. And that's the message he brought, but not just pretty words. It was how to realize that by feeling your unity with God through the science of yoga. And then once you begin feeling your own higher self, you look around you and you just say, but everyone's my friend. Everyone, no matter what their pattern of life, no matter even how foolish they are. Wise or foolish, we're your children, is a line from one of Swami Kriyananda's songs. And so just his message is more relevant today than ever. And I think this will be true on into the future, because it's as though just as Christ came, he was far ahead of his time. He knew what was going to happen from the beginning of his mission. He knew how the story was going to end. But did he hesitate? Not at all. He knew he brought a message that was not just for the people of that time. It was for the world and for eternal. These truths are eternal. And so what Yogananda brought to was eternal truths that we can apply today, that can improve our life. And the more people who follow them, the more it improves the whole consciousness of this planet, which I think we all can recognize sorely needs some help now. And so I'll conclude and let the wise part of our family speak now. And I just want to also give a shout out to my brother and sister-in-law who are attending, and they live down in Oceanside, and it's wonderful that you could come. So now, Jyotish will carry on.
I'm just happy she said the wise part of our family instead of the wise guy. So I doubt there's anybody in the audience who wouldn't like to see a better world that we live in. In fact, that's just a universal sense where there's always a desire for something more. It's implanted in us. And we can begin that search by thinking that we can achieve it by changing something outside, or we can change ourselves. And so I'm sure most of you have heard of C.S. Lewis. He wrote the Narnia books and very popular. He had a very wry sense of humor. He said, there are many people who would like to serve God, most of them in an advisory capacity. And so most of us think in terms of changing the world. In fact, Yogananda's first talk, the battle of life and how to fight it. There's a great scripture in India, the Mahabharata, and from that comes the Bhagavad Gita that many people have read. And that is about a huge battle that takes place between two related families. And if you think of that as something exterior, as most people do, most people think of battles as being something exterior. In fact, we were told in India that there are households that will not allow that book to be on a bookshelf in their house because it's about battles between brothers or battles between cousins, and they don't want that vibration in their house. Well, if you think of the battle of life as being something outside of you, then of course there's endless conflict, endless tension, endless violence. But Yogananda and our line of gurus reinterpreted that. So every character in that great scripture, Mahabharata, that's been around for 2,000 years, the real understanding of it, every character in that represents an internal quality in us. And so the battle of life is not something outside of ourselves. The battle of life is us fighting against the internal qualities that we have, greed and lust and material desire and anger and all. In fact, in the Mahabharata, There are 5 good guys, the Pandava brothers. They represent the chakras in our body, our spiritual energy. The other side has 100 brothers, so 100 bad qualities, and that's just an indication of the beginning of what can dwell inside. So the battle is a battle of consciousness, and that is the eternal battle that we have to fight. If we think that we can change something in the world by changing something outside of ourselves, it's just as silly as going out and stamping our feet and saying, change, I want it to stop raining. God, make it stop raining. Going to do any good? But you can go out there and it can be pouring rain. Carry an umbrella, for goodness sake. You know, you can't change the world, so quit trying. You can change yourself, so start trying. And it's really as simple as that. Well, Yogananda came not just to draw big crowds, but he came to give not only the teachings, but the power and the grace to help us uplift our consciousness. And when we uplift our consciousness, all of those things that we wanted to change outside of ourselves begin automatically to change because we now have changed ourselves, changed the perceiver, and you change what is perceived. Change what is perceived, leave the perceiver alone, and he just turns and looks at a different scene and is just as upset, just as angry, just as ready to go to war, whatever it is. But the only solution is to change ourselves. And in fact, there's an even deeper depth. Well, we have a limited time this morning, but we're going to give a much longer talk this afternoon. But there's an even deeper level to this. What we perceive in and of itself is not real. There was a talk that Yogananda gave, and I'll end with this. He said, I rarely talk this way, but I feel that God wants me to talk like this to this particular audience. Who knows what their good karma was that drew this talk? But Yogananda said, when you look at the world, you see it in dimensions. You see height and width and length. You see the 3 dimensions. And that's the way that you perceive everything. He said, I perceive that also. But I also perceive that all of that is made only of consciousness. And I also perceive the world as pure consciousness. And in that pure consciousness, there is no dimension. There's no height or width or breadth or time. It's just pure consciousness. And the world of dimension arises out of the world of pure consciousness. And so if we think we can change the world of dimension without changing consciousness, it's inevitably going to fail for us. So the real teaching of Yogananda is that if we want there to be a better world, then we better make ourselves a better person. We better uplift our consciousness. And he not only taught that, but he gave us the tools to do that. So we're going to proceed through the day giving a lot of tools and a lot of ideas. But the essence of it is what he brought was a world-changing message, which was start with ourselves, uplift ourselves, and the whole world will follow along. So God bless you, and we've got another wonderful speaker coming.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Michael. I'm one of the organizers of today's event, Yogananda Fest. First of all, I would like to say that all of us admire your courage to come out in this weather for Los Angeles. This is really terrible weather, so a round of applause to everybody. I serve at Ananda centers here in Southern California. I've been with Ananda for a little over a decade now, and mainly I serve at the Ananda South Bay Center, which is 5 minutes from here on Hawthorne Boulevard, for those of you who may not have been there. We have other centers here in Los Angeles as well, in East Los Angeles and in Thousand Oaks. So I would like to, we have more information on our centers right outside in the Ananda Los Angeles booth right outside here. Please get some information there. Our next topic is meditation, finding your true center. This aligns with our theme of the day, superconscious living, finding your inner joy. And to talk to us about that, who better than someone who's been on the path for 45 years now, since 1980, who was a nurse before and was guided, that's a story by itself, guided to go to medical school and went to Stanford, became a medical doctor, specialized in internal medicine. She's been practicing and still currently practicing medicine in a very, very different way through intuition. And how does she do that? Through meditation, by finding her inner true center. So without taking too long, I would like to introduce Nayaswami Shanti Rubenstone. Please join us. It's a joy and an honor to be with you. Thank you.
Thank you. One might think it would be nerve-wracking trying to speak after Nayaswami, Devi, and Jyotish, but the truth is, it's so inspiring listening to you, everything, that I just feel such great joy being able to be here and speaking after you, but with everybody. The essence of what we'll be talking about, everybody all day, was just shared by both of them, but I'd like to focus it just a little bit more into meditation. I'd like to just start by reading something that Yogananda wrote, and he wrote it in a book called The Second Coming of Christ. And in the chapter on the resurrection of Christ's consciousness, which is, as we know, probably the most major event any of us can think of in our lifetimes. As Swamiji used to say, it's the greatest story ever told, and it is. But it's important because what meditation is really all about is a means of helping us experience that resurrection within ourselves, our own souls, kind of winning the battle that Jyotish was talking about and finding its way back to its true home in God, which means that place of the realization of who we really are, which is one with the divine. Every one of us, Devi quoted Yogananda, I don't remember the quote right now, but when he said, this is for all of you, this is for every one of us, this extraordinary gift that he came to share. It's not just for a few special people. And as all of the masters say all of the time, they didn't come here to show us how great they are. They really came to help us see how great we are. As Christ said, everything I am, you are too. and more. And he wasn't just wasting words. He was trying to say to everyone, you too are a manifestation of pure divine energy. So this is from this chapter on the resurrection. Yogananda says, the world is a place of ambiguity and imperfection. Man was not meant to find lasting peace and happiness here. Rather, souls are sent to earth to slough off their delusive mortal guise and regain expression of their divine nature. So he's saying to us, we are actually born again and again and again to slough off all of these imperfections and to regain that which we really are. Unfortunately, it sounds simple, but it's not easy. There's a story that Davy often tells. I was worried she was going to tell it today, but she didn't. She saved it for me. That was her intuition of a man who's traveling through some roads in farmland in Maine, and he gets lost. So he stops and he sees a farmer, and he says to the farmer, here's where I want to go. How do I get there? And the farmer says, he thinks for a minute, and he says to the man, you know, if you go down to the first stop sign and you turn right, and then he stops, he goes, no, wait a minute. That's not going to work. No, go back the way you came. And when you get to the second stop sign, take a left. No, that's not going to work. And then he says, you know, you can't get there from here. And it's a good story, and it's funny. And we have to think, what does it mean for us? Here we are, all of us, every one of us, doing everything we can that we can think about to find happiness, to feel peace, to be contented, to be able to love well. And the only thing that we're doing wrong is we're faced exactly 180 degrees in the wrong direction. Just like Jyotish was just saying, we spend lifetimes looking outside, all of us. It happens from the instant we're born. It's the nature of the human condition that we need food. It's outside of us. We need warmth. It starts with very simple, basic needs, but it keeps going like that. And the only thing that happens is we travel further and further down this spiritual path. We're trying to go deeper and deeper inside, is that the tests just get more subtle. But as long as we're in this human body, we have this thought, this energy driving us that what we need to be happy is out there. And it sounds silly, the example sounds silly. If I get the right home, if I could find just the right pair of shoes for this outfit, if my children get into the right colleges. I mean, we've all experienced angst about these things. And as I said, it just gets more subtle, but we keep looking out until we realize, and I use that word consciously, realize we will never get there with the logical mind. Wait a minute, I can't get there from here. I have to find the way to begin to take all of this energy. We are energy living in a sea of energy. And the masters have known this for thousands of years. And thank goodness, in our more modern time, the scientists started finding it out. First, in the late 18th century, with the physical laws of the universe started in the late 18th century and moved to the beginning of the 20th century. The first physical law of the universe: energy can neither be created nor destroyed, but it can always be transformed. Always and only. That gives us so much hope. It doesn't say sometimes, doesn't say if you have good luck. It says energy cannot be created or destroyed. All the energy that ever was or will be is here now. It looks different, so we get fooled. We actually think we're made of something different than the chair that we're sitting on, but we're not. We actually think we're made of something different than the food we eat, the air we breathe, but we're not. It's energy vibrating at different frequencies, and it creates this delusion that we live in. And our job, and now the scientists are helping us, because of course the next Einstein came along. He said mass and all mass is energy. This doesn't sound like it's relevant to us. It's exactly relevant to us. It's exactly what we need to know. How is it that we are going to have a way to transform all of the energy that looks foreign to us into the one energy back to its source in superconsciousness? And that is the point of meditation. Meditation is the way, the only way, absolutely the only way to find all of what we think we want. And it's doable, but it's a practice. We have to begin to learn, how do we control that energy? Pranayama, energy control. And this is what meditation is. It teaches us through the use of breath. Breath is not really the energy, but it can control the energy, so that even after a few weeks of sitting with a simple technique called Hong Sa, first technique that we learn on this path, first technique of meditation, after we've learned some other techniques about how is it that we will lasso this energy and bring it right here. And then we learn a technique called Hong Sa. And I started to say, I have watched this for decades now. Many of us have. That you watch somebody who simply starts practicing. See, that's the science that Davy was talking about. What does science mean? It means an experiment that is provable every time it's done, if it's done properly. So that's why Yogananda said, I don't have this exactly right now, but basically he said, you can give me 5 young boys from anywhere and give me a certain amount of time, and they will become yogis. I will help them raise their consciousness. He said it much more articulately than I just did. But the point is well taken. And we've seen people come back to me and they say to me, Shanti, everybody's looking at me, asking me, what's happening with you? And people will look at you, they'll do something like this. Did you get your hair cut? Did you always wear glasses? They're trying to figure out what happened, what changed. Well, what's changing is that we are learning a technique to help us calm the energy, calm it in our hearts, calm it at the point between the eyebrows, the place of superconsciousness within us. It's helping us concentrate energy so that we go from being frenetic and wild and emotional, crying 1 minute, laughing the next. Just like Jyotish was saying, we could all be so upset, or Davy, that it's raining. Because if it was sunny, there would probably be twice as many people here. But nobody did that this morning. Nobody. We walked in, we're just filled with joy to be here. And those of you who came who have never been here, you responded to some intuitive call. And it's that intuition that meditation helps us refine. I'll share one story with you from this very long, I mean, look at me, and beautiful life in medicine that I've had, which has always been guided and inspired by Yogananda. And that's just simply the truth. Why it happened, I don't know, but somehow he decided that I should. And here I am. But I'll just give you an example of how meditation works in our life. One day, my partners were both away. So I was seeing my patients, all of their patients. I would say a doctor usually sees 12 to 15 patients in a day, and it's a lot. I was seeing close to 40 that day. And this young boy starts calling the front desk in my office. I have to see Dr. Rubenstone today. Have you ever seen her before? No. A friend of mine told me about her. So that woman comes back to me, and I said, please tell him I just can't see him today. 20 minutes later, she comes back. He's calling me again. I said, tell him no, absolutely no. I'm busy. I don't this is what I was doing. He needs to go to an urgent care clinic, not me. 20 minutes later. So finally I said, all right, tell him to come in. Tell him it's not going to be a great visit for a first patient. It's not how I practice medicine. He kept telling her he has a cold. He has an upper respiratory infection. So I had no reason to be concerned about this man. I was being obstinate, but he was being more obstinate. And he won. So he comes in, and I have to say, parenthetically, I want to say this was many years ago. Maybe I would do it differently now. I don't know. I was not great with him. I said, it was like this, all right, what's going on? After I introduced myself. So he says, I've had a cold and a cough and this. And I just couldn't believe he had pushed his way in. So I looked in his mouth, looked in his ears, do what a doctor would do. Suddenly, this sense comes to me. I'm irritated with him. Listen to his heart. Over here. Then Shanti comes back in. No, I'm not listening to his heart. He has an upper respiratory infection. And I wasn't hearing it, but knowing it. I don't know if I just knew, listen to his heart. All right. So, this is very important because if Shanti was doing that, I would never have listened to his heart. I was irritated with him. I was already over the top in a very busy day. But in comes, and I'd been meditating for years at this point. I put my stethoscope on his heart, and he has one of the loudest, most pathological murmurs, heart murmurs I've ever heard. Pathological, as you know, means not good. People can have heart murmurs that are okay. So I said to him, how long have you had this heart murmur? He says to me, I don't have a heart murmur. I said to him, you have a heart murmur. No, nobody's ever told me. So I said to him, I'm already really irritated with you. Don't fight with me. Then I say to the woman at the front desk, get radiology, we need an echocardiogram today. She comes back, she says, they can't do it, they're too busy. I said, tell them they have to do it. They do the echo, means you get a picture of the heart, and the radiologist calls me. He said to me, Shanti, this is awful. He's got a huge aneurysm. So I was practicing in Baltimore. I called Johns Hopkins. I said, I'm sending him right down by ambulance. I think the young man is really in trouble. They had him in the operating room that night, and the surgeon called me the next day. He said he had an aneurysm right at the junction of his aorta and his heart. They said by tomorrow we think he would have been dead. Later, that man said to me, I don't know why I kept pushing to see you. Something just kept telling me I had to see you. Now, this is not a personal story. This is a gift from a practice, a simple practice of teaching ourselves to sit still, to listen to that which is more well-informed about everything than we are, about everything. As soon as I can get myself out of the way and be guided by this super conscious state that it is ours, but we need ways to tune in. And the way to attune ourselves to that vibration is through meditation. It's this simple practice. You say to yourselves, I'll start by giving it 10 minutes a day. Do it every day. Do it at the same time every day. Otherwise, this part of you that was me fighting comes in and says, you don't have to do it today. You're late. You need to cook dinner. Somebody else needs you for something. And I've often said to people, there is no good reason to not meditate unless somebody has a cardiac arrest right in front of you. Because otherwise, the mind will take you on its trip. It's delusion, and it's so enticing. But as soon as we begin this practice and we allow ourselves to be guided always to the right thing, to the highest thing, to all of those things that we're all looking for, as I said before, peace, contentment, love, joy, pure wisdom, that young man would have died. But as I said, Yogananda has always been there, not for me, no, but for everybody that he brought to me, always. And somehow that young man knew it as well. And he's still alive and he's happy. And he had an imminently life-threatening problem solved. That's what happens. Everything that looks big and unmanageable just becomes part of a beautiful flow that we're on in life. I'm going to take 2 more minutes. This is the quickest meditation class you'll ever have. But I want to share with you, literally in 2 minutes, the technique called Hung Sa. That's a mantra. What it actually means is I am that. So it's a bit of an affirmation, but it almost doesn't matter what it means. You could say, I am bliss, I am love, I am joy. There's a vibration to those Sanskrit words, and you say mentally, hung, as you breathe in, and you bring all of your energy, try and feel it as light, as heat, however you can do this, up through the very center of your being. That's where we're going. And you bring it here. Hung, I am. Beautiful statement in and of itself. Saw, that, joy, pure joy. I am a part of everything. I have access to infinite knowledge, infinite joy, infinite love, real love, true love, divine love. We have that already. Hung Sa, Sa on the exhalation. Just keep repeating it. Sit as long as you can be comfortable. Do it. It's a science. You have to do the experiment and then watch. In weeks, maybe days, people start noticing. You start noticing your boss is not as annoying. You realize you're in a beautiful relationship. Gee, maybe it's been me that's been off. This is what happens. This is a transformational experience because energy can always be transformed. And that is the beautiful promise in meditation. Thank you all so much.
Good morning, everyone. I don't know how to do this, but I'll try. Is there an easy way to do this? This is the one, right? Okay, thank you. All right, once again, good morning, everyone. My name is Padma, and I have the blessing to, with my husband, Arnab, to serve here at Ananda, LA. And it is my honor and joy to introduce our next speaker, Nayaswami Devarshi. So many years back, I was pretty new on the path, and our then current center leader here in our center here, right here, a few miles away from here at Torrance, trying to explain who Devarshi was as he was coming down to visit us, said, Devarshi, he's the real deal. And I wasn't really, I didn't even know what that expression meant. It's a very American expression. And much later, I realized he is the real deal. It's a blessing to be in the presence of Devarshi. You know, these spiritual giants in our Ananda world, they kind of hide themselves in a garb of a very simple, quiet garb, but they are spiritual giants, and he's one of them. He is the director of Kriya Ministry, Ananda Worldwide. He lives in India for the many years now. And he's also the head of the monastery there. And they are building a monastery in northern India. Imagine a forest hermitage. And joy to invite Devarshi. Also, before I go, I want to show that he's also written this book. If you have not read it, it's a must for any spiritual seeker. Kriya Yoga, Spiritual Awakening for the New Age, and he'll probably refer to this more. If you want to get this book, it's right across this plaza. There is the vendor hall there. A lot of vendors are in there, including Crystal Clarity, our publishing book house from Ananda. So let's warmly welcome Nayaswami Devarshi.
I don't know what the real deal is either, but it sounds good. What a joy to be here. I'm talking today mostly from my book, this book that Padma introduced. I would highly recommend this. I don't feel this is my book. I've been sharing the Kriya teachings for over 45 years and been training people on the path of Kriya Yoga for most of that time. And I've had the opportunity to see many hundreds of people take up these teachings, live them, practice them. And I think like Nayaswami Devi was sharing, without exception, people change. Their lives change. they have more joy, they have more inspiration, and they really find fulfillment. It's not easy. There's a discipline that brings that grace, as Yogananda ji said. And so our part is to really practice the science of religion, but we've been given the tools of it. And this book really goes in depth how to awaken this inner joy that we have. And so I'm going to talk first about what is that inner joy. I loved Shanti's story about the guy in Maine trying to give directions, saying you can't get there from here. I've heard another folk saying that says, if you don't know where you're going, you're not going to get there. It's very, very deep thought. But when we talk about joy, people have different ideas of what joy is. For most people, joy is in a box. And it's, if I have this or I have that, or if this problem goes away in my life, I'll be happy. But the joy that Swami Kriyananda talked about for so many years, that Paramahansa Yogananda spoke about, it's divine bliss. In India, they call it Sat Chit Ananda. And Yogananda translated that or talked about it as ever conscious, ever existing, ever new, divine joy. And this is the type of joy that is unconditional. We don't have to change the world. Now, the way the world is today, I think all of us would like to snap our fingers and change the world. Does anyone else would like to do that? The problem is that there's also a guy over in Washington who would like to do that. There's a guy in China who's trying to do that, a guy in Russia who's trying to do that. There's 12 billion people or whatever, 8 billion people on the planet who would like to do that. And they'll have different ideas of how they would like to change the world. And so there's great conflict in the world. And we do have a duty to try to help others, to try to uplift others. But it's not going to be coming by changing others. It's going to be coming by changing ourselves. When we awaken that divine joy within ourselves, what happens is that the people around us begin to change. I'm thinking of a man in India who we trained in the path of Kriya Yoga, and he's a soldier in the military. And not just a soldier in the military, he actually trains commandos. He goes to the border. He's part of the border patrol that patrols the border with China, finds terrorists. They have extreme conflict. He's a real warrior. He goes on UN peacekeeping missions, leading them in different parts of the world. And he learned Kriya Yoga. And he came to me once with his wife, and his wife was alarmed and concerned originally, and she was explaining this to me because he thought that her husband, when he learned Kriya Yoga, he would leave the family. They had 2 small, beautiful children, and that he would leave the family and go and become a Baba in the Himalayas and go to the caves and abandon everything. And she said she was really delighted. She was threatened. She didn't want to have anything to do with this Kriya Yoga business. And she said that over time, he became kinder, he became more loving, he became less prone to anger. He was standing there listening to this the whole time. It was very charming to see. And yet he was a very strong man. And he was smiling peacefully and obviously less prone to anger and react. And then she said, I want to learn Kriya Yoga too. And his influence in the family was an expression of changing himself from within. I'm probably stealing Nayaswami Shankara's line, but I like to steal other people's lines occasionally. And this one, he says, this whole path, it's an inside job. And it's about changing ourselves on the inside. And when we can change ourselves on the inside, then our world starts to change. We find that this joy that we have, the kindness that we have, starts to radiate and spread light and peace and joy. I think one of the speakers here mentioned the blog that Jyotishji Deviji write, and they share great wisdom every week. I would highly recommend signing up for that and receiving the email every week that shares that blog. And they shared a study that I had read also of when people do an act of kindness, that they studied some scientists, I don't know how you study acts of kindness, but they found that these simple acts of kindness spread to 3 degrees, meaning it influences one person, it touches another person, and it goes away 3 steps and probably more with that influence of the energy that people express. And so if we want to change the world, start right here. Start with changing ourselves. You will also find, and I think we've all found, that initially we think that happiness and that joy is found, if I just get this, I'll have peace, I'll have happiness. If I just get that person, I'll have happiness. And we get that person and we find out, well, that didn't work. If we get that car, we get that job, we get that hair color, whatever it is, we find that it doesn't work. And as Yogananda ji said, that after a few million lifetimes of anguishing monotony, of doing this same thing over and over again, we finally start to wake up and realize, okay, I think I need to completely change my overall approach. And I really need to do a U-turn, 180 degrees from out there to in here. And this is why these practices work really without exception. Now, joy, because we want to find out where we're trying to go so that we can get there. Joy is unconditional. It's not affected or impacted by anything outside of ourselves. Devi shared the story of Swami Kriyananda in the hospital with all these tubes, noodles coming out of his body and poking him. And there was joy there because his joy was never conditioned by anything outside of himself. And because he had that divine joy, I was talking to one of his former brother monks when he was a monk in Yogananda's organization. And this brother monk said to me, he said, when Kriyananda was here, the halls rocked with laughter. And he was sort of implying that he missed the halls rocking with laughter. And there was a great deal of joy around Swami Kriyananda. And it wasn't just a giddy laughter, it came from the depths of divine joy. And this is what we can start to experience and start to share with others. And we can start really, again, this whole book is what Yogananda gave to bring us, of how we can change ourselves from within through scientific techniques, through practices, by awakening that divine joy within. And we can start to be a cause rather than an effect in this world. And it's a challenge in some ways. And again, I share this analogy in the story, in the book, where there's a wave of energy sweeping across the world right now. And I think we all feel it. You open up the news and you think, oh my God, and you shut the news and you can't help but be impacted by it and affected by it. And it is like a tidal wave. And it's also an opportunity for spiritual growth. We saw this, especially in India during COVID. It was, for those, maybe some of you were in India at that time, but it was truly intense to a degree that I don't think many people experienced in America. We all knew people who had died. We knew family members. There was about a 2-month extremely intense period where we were doing astral ascension ceremony, like a funeral ceremony, for like 15 people at a time, because there were so many people, loved ones, family members. And, there was an extraordinary amount of stress and intensity to that you couldn't help but be affected by it, because, we all knew people who we were close to who had lost their parent, their spouse, their husband, and their wife. And during that time, I noticed a few things. One, Shanti's recommendation to learn the Hong Sau technique. I did a lot of Hong Sau to find and go back to that place of peace and stillness in my heart that was free from anxiety, from fear, from worry, because then I found I could give much more. These practices like that technique, it's a little bit like learning to play a musical instrument, where the more you practice it, and it's universal, you don't have to be musically inclined, to learn a musical instrument and master it, you have to have some inclination. but we all have the inclination for peace and joy. It's our very nature. And so these practices, more and more, they become a skill almost to find peace and calmness under any stressful circumstance. Yogananda ji, he described it as standing unshaken amidst the crash of breaking worlds that these practices will give to you. But I also discovered something different also regarding the power of this tidal wave of energy, is that many of the people that we were close to, they were spending their lives serving others and giving to others during that time, completely selflessly. And we found that, yes, it was difficult. I was on a Zoom meeting at the end of the day with one of our groups in Kolkata, is where it was. And they had especially intense time there, and they were all describing what they did during that day. And this person was trying to find oxygen container for this person that they met in the hospital while they were visiting their parents who were in the hospital. And people were just giving and serving. And there was a lot of tears from the stress of it. But those people, their spiritual growth was magnified, intensified, and hastened by that tidal wave of energy and riding it, just like a surfer rides a wave of energy. And this is what we saw during those times, during challenging times, personally in our lives, in the world, in situations around us, when we can develop that strength and skill. It really is a skill of learning how to surf. I love watching the surfers in Southern California just sitting on the cliffs and watching the skill that you see. And you see someone who's really skillful and they ride a really big wave and they just enjoy it. You see someone who's still learning and they get totally obliterated by the wave and smashed by it. And that's kind of what we are facing in the world right now. We have a choice. There's a wave. There's a huge wave. It's coming and it's here at times. And we don't have much of a choice about that. What we can choose is that we can learn the skills to ride that wave and learn extraordinarily hastened spiritual progress as a result of it. That's the opportunity that we have. And that's why Yogananda came during this time, is to give us the tools to be able to learn how to do this. Now, this joy that we're talking about, it's in here. It's nowhere else. It's here. It's everywhere. It's here, there, and everywhere, to paraphrase a song that I remember from long ago. And it's in our hearts. And I would recommend a practice that I have found really helpful. I think people who have even been meditating for a long time or a short time would also find it helpful. We hear it said, and it's a truth, that the kingdom of God is within you and that God is within you. And it is true. But ask yourself a question and take this into meditation sometime, because it helps to turn our awareness around of how we understand these things and really use our intuition to really take it deeper, which is ask yourself the question, is God within you or are you within God? And just meditate on that question in your own meditation. Yes, they're both true. God is within us. But when we think of, well, God is within me, we think in terms of God was out there and I am bringing him in here and now God is within me. But when we understand the deeper truth that I am within God, I am part of God, I have always been part of God, then when we try to awaken, unlock, and feel that divine joy in our hearts, in our minds, it's not something that's ever been out there. We've never been separate from it. Yogananda, he defined self-realization as self-realization is the knowing in all parts of body, mind, and soul that I am now in possession of the kingdom of God. I need not pray that it come to me, for God's omnipresence is my omnipresence. All I need is to improve my knowing. And this is what meditation and Kriya does for us. And it's natural to everyone because it works with our own true nature that we were never separate from God. We've always been within God and part of God. And all we need to do is improve our knowing. And what do we spend most of our lives doing? We spend most of our lives disimproving our knowing by covering it with all these things that are really foreign to us and foreign to our understanding by thinking, I'll be happy with this, or anger, greed, all these different things, desire, attachment, reactivity, emotions, all these things hide and cover that truth from within us and that knowing that is part of our nature. Now, this joy is not an idea, and this is why we must practice these things. We must practice meditation. We must use intuition. We must experience and use our own understanding, because it is something that is felt and experienced. Towards the end of his life, Swami Kriyananda gave an interview, and he was asked about God. And the way he put it was very, it was unusual the way he put it, but later I realized that sages have been saying the same thing through all the eternity. He said that God is feeling more than reason. God is feeling. That's an interesting thing to think about. And then he said, and that feeling is divine bliss. So divine bliss is a feeling. It's a feeling of the heart. It's a feeling that's awakened throughout the entire consciousness. It's that feeling of unconditional divine joy, where you can be blissful and happy under all circumstances. That is the feeling of God. There's also another feeling aspect of God, which I won't really get into, which is that we hear also that God is love. And Swami Kriyananda once said, I see Narayan back there, it's one of our favorite quotes of Swami Kriyananda, where Swamiji, he said that love is bliss in action. And love is that expression of the divine. It's not a human emotion. It's the divine feeling. And so where we start from in our lives is that we're used to feeling being a human feeling and a human emotion. And the yogis, they talked about this type of feeling. The great sage Patanjali in his Yoga Sutras, he said, Yogas Chitta Vritti Nirod, which is that yoga is the neutralizing and the calming of the waves of feeling of the heart. And he was talking about human emotions and feelings. And so in order to find that true divine feeling of divine joy, we have to start working with the agitated feelings of the heart, because for most of us, that's what really covers the divine joy, is this agitated human emotions. And I think for all of us as yogis, we're here in this world, we're all in this together, and we face the same thing. We read the news, we see people suffering, we see people struggling, and yeah, it really agitates the human feelings of our heart. And the path of yoga, the way that Yogananda gave it to us, it was not to kill that feeling and suppress it and push it away and say, this is bothering me. And this is why so many people self-medicate with alcohol or drugs, because that feeling is so uncomfortable and people don't know how to work with it and how to deal with it. And they think that they can just make it go away, they'll feel better. But what yoga teaches is that by calming those feelings, this is where the Hong Sau technique really is just one of the greatest scientific techniques of, on every level that there is that it calms the breathing, it calms the heart rate, it calms the agitated feeling of the heart, and gets us to start to feel God as divine peace and as divine calmness. And I would really, again, recommend this to all practitioners of Kriya Yoga and meditation, no matter how long. Start to work with that Hong Sau practice, which Yogananda called it the baby Kriya. Start to work with it as a tool, not just as a technique, but as a tool for finding peace and calmness of our heart, because it's always there. And I've learned over the years, and I especially learned this during the pandemic in India when there was so much agitated feeling of the heart that because I've been practicing these things for many years, it becomes easier and easier to use Hong Sa technique, not as a technique, but as a tool for finding God's peace within. And as you practice it, it becomes a skill. Finding peace within becomes a skill. It's one of the greatest skills that you can develop, really, in this world. And so once the agitated feeling is calmed, then we start feeling and understanding this divine feeling of divine joy, of divine love, of devotion, all these divine qualities of feeling. And so this, in a way, is really, and there's a whole chapter, a couple chapters in this book about learning how to turn human feeling into divine feeling and how to transmute, really. Yogananda, or Lahiri Mahashaya, one of the great gurus here on the altar, he said that Kriya Yoga is like alchemy. It's a divine alchemy. And the way Yogananda put it in one of his chants, his songs, was, touch me but once, Lord, and I will change all my clay into thy gold, all my clay into thy gold. Because we have a lot of clay. I think, I don't want to get too crude, but I think Yogananda used the word clay because you don't want to use the more crude expression of all the funky stuff we have in ourselves. And all that can be turned into spiritual gold. It doesn't get obliterated because, as Shanti was saying, energy can't be wiped out. It can't be made to disappear, but it can be changed. And our energy can be changed. And again, this is where agitated feeling, emotion can be changed into divine feeling. And this is the way of Kriya Yoga, and this is how Kriya Yoga works. There's another way that Kriya works, which I'll talk about. And I'm here in Southern California, so I'm reminded of I've had many near-death experiences in my life, which I sometimes share with people, but one of them was here in Southern California. And it was a great blessing for me. I grew up in the Midwest part of the country, and I had very little experience with the ocean and its power. For me, the ocean was just this happy place. It, just was very comforting and peaceful and non-threatening. And I describe, again, I tell the story in the book here, but I was at the ocean. It was one of the first times in my life I had been in the ocean. I'd only been a handful of times before that, maybe 3, 4. And I was maybe 20 years old, 19 years old, and it was in the Southern California coast. It was a fairly remote beach. And I went to the beach, and there were signs that said, danger, dangerous currents, no lifeguard. And I thought, oh, it's the ocean. I know what I'm doing here. And so I went swimming out into the ocean, and I got caught in a riptide. And I had no idea what a riptide was. Later, I read about riptides and realized, oh yeah, maybe I should have paid attention to that sign. The ocean is very powerful. But I got caught in this riptide, and I just got pulled out to sea. And it was, maybe others here have gotten caught in a riptide, but it was overwhelmingly powerful. No matter how hard I tried to swim, it just kept pulling me further and further out to sea. And I didn't know what you're supposed to do in a riptide, so my response was just try harder and swim harder. And after about 10 minutes, I was completely spent, completely exhausted. I was way out in this very choppy, turbulent, bouncing up and down water. And all I was able to do was the expression turning belly up. That's what I did. I turned up on my back, belly up, floated on my back. And I was sure that that was going to be my last few breaths at that moment. And so I had just started meditating. And so I don't know what happened. I think this was the touch of God, because I surrendered. And I turned up on my back and I said, Lord, what a beautiful day. The sky is blue. This ocean is amazing. And it's been a good life. And it's about to end. And I give it all back to you. I'm yours. And I just completely surrendered myself to God, to the ocean, to the sky. I didn't really know what God was. I had very little understanding at that time. But I just gave myself back into the infinite with love, with surrender, holding nothing back, no regrets, no fear, no concerns. And in that moment when I did that, I just felt overwhelming divine bliss. It just was like, this is what dying and drowning is about. Okay, I can handle that. I wasn't thinking that because all I was thinking was this overwhelming divine joy. And within a few moments, suddenly I found myself in calm water, miraculously. I have no idea to this day how that happened. And it was so calm, I was able to kind of drag myself to the shore and collapse on the beach. But what I learned from that experience is one of the lessons of Kriya Yoga also, and what our great gurus have come to bring us, which is that selflessness equals bliss. The more and more we self-offer and give ourselves in devotion to God, the more we give ourselves in service to others, the more happy we are, the more joyful we are. And the more we think of ourselves and my problems, and this is me doing this rather than God doing it through me, the more we think of ourselves, the less joy there is. It's the simplest equation that you can imagine. Selflessness turns into divine joy because the little self goes away and becomes dissolved. And we start to understand that, yes, I am within God. And that separation that we've created between us and God is dissolved. And we become one with our true nature, what we have always been and we always will be, which is this divine joy. And so today, as we go through the different workshops, the practices, if you're new or if you've been doing this for a long time, really try to understand and be aware that we are within God, we have always been part of God, and that these practices are really just tools to help bring us back to that divine awareness of who and what we always are, have been, and all we need to do really is just to improve the knowing. And what Yogananda came was scientific tools, techniques. He called Kriya Yoga technology because what is a technology? It is tools to help us achieve a purpose and an aim. And so Kriya Yoga and these practices like Hong Sau and the others are the most extraordinary tools to help us find that divine joy within us that is who and what we really are. So enjoy this day. Enjoy spending time with these great souls that you'll see all around you with the booths and some of these longtime Ananda members. And let's spend this time swimming in the selfless experience of divine joy and divine grace today.
Good morning, everybody. We've all been sitting here for a couple hours, so let's take a moment. We're not going to do the super conscious living exercises, but stand up and smile at your neighbor, say hello. I don't know about you guys, but I know when I walked in here this morning, I felt the tangible joy. It's such a beautiful gift to be here. So just say hello, stretch for a moment, and then now I think I only have 4 minutes left, so you get to sit right back down, please. My name is Chela, and it is my absolute privilege to lead the small center of Ananda in Thousand Oaks. We are a beautiful community of deep souls who care so much about deepening our attunement and our devotion to God. We're north of Los Angeles in Ventura County. We are a full teaching center. We take people all the way up through Kriya initiation. So if you live in Northern Valley of Los Angeles, Reseda, Thousand Oaks, anywhere around there, all the way up to Ventura and beyond, we would be your closest center. So we have some information if you want to contact us. We have flyers out there, and we also have an upcoming free introduction to the Path of Kriya yoga class coming up in about 10 days. So where was I going next? Brain freeze. First, I want to thank, I have to do this quickly now, I think I have 2.5 minutes left. I want to thank Ananda LA for putting this together, because we all learned so beautifully through these masters and the teachings of the path of Kriya Yoga, the power and the significance and the importance of magnetism, the environment that you place yourself in, being around great souls, inspirational souls, uplifting environment, listening to music. And even Swami Kriyananda said, who was a beautiful soul who has given us all of these teachings as a direct disciple of Yogananda, told us, if you want to know me as a great inspiration, get to know my music. And so it is my absolute pleasure to introduce your next presenters, Bhagavati and Ramesha. And they are so spectacular. They have immersed themselves in the consciousness of Swami Kriyananda through his music. And they spend their lives traveling the world, sharing that music with all of us so that we can open our hearts to these teachings and expand our own consciousness. So please welcome Ramesha and Bhagavati.
So while Ramesha grabs the guitar, I just want to say that the title of our talk is Music, Creativity, and Superconsciousness. So we're going to talk about superconsciousness and music. The creativity part is not just composing or writing or, creativity we all need to use in our day-to-day lives. So we're going to be sharing some things, and we want you to think about how you can be creative in finding moments in your life that you can apply the things that you're hearing, because that takes creativity too. So the first thing we're going to do, kind of building on what Chela asked you to do, is we're going to sing together. Okay, so we're going to sing a song that you don't need to know all the lyrics. We'll sing the lyrics. Your part is going to be to sing Luru Luru Lero, Luru Luru Lai. Joy will come to everyone, anyone whose soul has learned to, whose heart, I'm sorry, I just went back about a decade, because those were the original words that Swami then changed. Whose heart will, you'll hear it.
Do you know this?
I think I do.
The secret of laughter lies in the laughing, not in the search for joy. It's a swallow ringing on the wing, it's innocence in a boy. Luru luru lero, luru luru lie. Joy will come to anyone whose heart has learned to fly. Luru luru lero, luru luru lie. Joy will come to anyone whose heart has learned to fly. Joy in the singing, not in the song sung, welcome but never crave. If you think that laughter lies in things, the things you'll be but a slave. Luru luru lero, luru luru lie. Joy will come to anyone whose heart has learned to fly. Luru luru lero, luru luru lie. Joy will come to anyone whose heart has learned to fly. Joy in the giving, not in the gaining. Grasp and you'll never see. You could win the world and still be poor. Win peace and live like a king. Luru luru lero, luru luru lie. Joy will come to anyone whose heart has learned to fly. Luru luru lero, luru luru lie. Joy will come to anyone whose heart has learned to fly. Sing when the sun shines, sing when the rain falls, sing when the road seems strange. In a tempest seize the lightning flash and ride the winds of change. Luru luru lero, luru luru lie. Joy will come to anyone whose heart has learned to fly. Luru luru lero, luru luru lie. Joy will come to anyone whose heart has learned to fly. One more time. Luru luru lero, luru luru lie. belong to anyone whose heart has learned to fly.
I'll put the guitar away. You talk.
So, since our talk on music is also about superconsciousness, I wanted to spend just a few moments to explain a little bit more about superconsciousness, because we've heard this word many times this morning from several speakers. And so it's a deep topic, and I will just talk about it for a few minutes. And so, in a nutshell, we are very much aware of our conscious mind. This is the mind we use during the day to do everything we do. We're not so aware, and because they're a little bit more hidden from us, we're not so aware about our subconscious mind or the superconscious mind. They come out sometimes. We have hints of their existence. For example, we do things, we learn to tie our shoelaces. We don't have to think every time we do it how it's done. It's in there. We've learned it. It's automated. So this is part of the subconscious mind. And it's a blessing. It's also a curse because it comes out in our habits, good or bad. The superconscious mind is a little bit more subtle. And it comes out in moments when, like Shanti's story, you know, where she was so busy, but she had this intuitive feeling that she had to see this man, you know, in spite of her busyness. And so those are hints from the superconscious mind. The superconscious mind is more connected to our soul, to what we really are, whereas the conscious mind is more connected to our ego, which is what we are not. It's what we think we are, but we're not. And so to learn to listen to our superconscious mind, to that part of us that's more connected to the soul, is really one of the goals of spiritual practice, because as we practice meditation and other spiritual practices, we are more able to access and to find ways to access that part of us that stays more hidden until it's not hidden at all. For these great masters, superconsciousness is just, that's their natural state of being and beyond. They're just so vast. And so these great masters have a lot of intuitive, they just work all the time that way. So what does that have to do with music? Music can play a big role in helping us to access superconsciousness, because as we know, music has this ability, when we hear a piece of music, it just goes straight to the heart. You know, music is a vibration. It doesn't really stay here. We don't analyze necessarily what we hear, but it just goes straight to the heart, and it's able to make some changes in us, to influence us in a positive or negative way, depending what kind of music we listen to. And this is important because if we learn to listen to music that is uplifting, that is inspiring, and most especially, and I'm glad that Chela mentioned Swami Kriyananda writing so much music. I mean, direct disciple of a great master writing almost 400 pieces of music, that gets your attention. Why would he spend that much time doing that when he had a worldwide mission to accomplish? Well, that's because he knew that through music, he could reach people, even people who maybe couldn't hear the word God or spirituality or meditation or any of that, but he could reach them with a vibration that could help them and uplift them. And so the music that he wrote is very, very, very intentional. It's beautiful. It's also entertaining, but it's very intentional in its power to lift your mind, your consciousness, your energy to a higher level. And this is very important, especially in this day and age that we're living through right now, where there's so much going on and it's so easy to get caught in whirlpools of negativity, of judgment, of fear. And so to have music that can help us to stay on a higher level of consciousness and not get caught too much in what's going on out there that can really drag us down, is absolutely important. And so Bhagavati will talk a little bit more about other aspects of why music that uplifts us is important. But I just want to say that there are many ways that we can respond to what happens to us. And meditation, as many of the speakers have talked about, is a great way to really be more in touch, more centered, really, and not letting ourselves get caught too much. But music can also help a lot. And especially if you surround yourselves with music that is uplifting, if you listen to it, if you sing it. This is why we always like to start with singing, because it's a simple song, but if you sing it, and if you really sing it with open heart, without trying to analyze, oh, it's in G major, and it's, I don't know, it's got these words or that rhythm, it's not that important. It's a vibration. What matters is the vibration. So if you didn't do it during this first song, you'll have a chance to do it again later, because we'll sing again in a moment. So, but Bhagavati will now talk a little bit more about other aspects of why music is important and what it can do for us to help us really be more centered and calm, especially in these turbulent times.
Yes, turbulent times. So what I want to talk about is how we can really think of using music as a tool. A lot of the time most of us, well, I always did. I've loved music all my life. I've done music all my life. But there wasn't an awareness that we can be intentional about how we listen to music. So most of us, you turn on the radio, whatever's on is on. Nowadays you put on Pandora or, whatever, and kind of whatever's on is on. And, we just listen. And, oh, I like that. Oh, I don't like that. I like that. I don't like that. And that's about as far as we go. Some songs, oh, I really like that song, but we don't necessarily say, well, why? Why do I really like that song? Is it because it reminds me of something and it hurts so good? I had songs that, they kind of were depressing, but yeah. I could give you a whole list, dysfunctional. I said, there was the 10 best dysfunctional love songs, it's like, it's like, oh yeah. So no, we don't really want to go there. We want to notice, did that song leave me feeling like I like the world? I'm ready to go out and, have some energy. So that's what we want to do, because we love Ananda music. Swami Kriyananda's music is absolutely incredible, and I really encourage you to get to know it and listen to it, and then notice, kind of like what Devarshi was saying, notice how you change over time listening to the music of Swami Kriyananda. But also any music, there are other uplifting, energizing types of music in the world, but just notice. When you listen, do you feel like this afterwards, or do you feel like this afterwards? Because when we're talking about challenging times, we don't want to be like this. Because when we're depressed, what's going to happen? We open up the paper, or somebody brings up a topic that, triggers us, and we're gone. We're just gone. And then we feel stressed, we feel depressed, we feel like, oh my goodness, what's going to happen? Feelings of fear can come in. That's not going to help anybody. So we can use music to help us stay centered, calm, okay, energized, positive. And then, okay, that's the basics. Now, there's some specific things we can do. We can sing, okay? How many people here like to sing? Raise your hands. All right, you're well on your way. Okay, so just make sure that you're singing things that help you feel positive, and they help you feel connected. One of the things I read and listen to people, I'm hearing that people want to feel more connected. They want to feel more a sense of community. Well, you're here with Ananda, so you're in the right place. But also out in the world, there are people who are feeling disconnected, like they can't feel a sense of belonging. And so we would suggest find ways to sing with people, with your family, with your neighbors, with your coworkers. Just find ways to sing. If you think 50 years ago, some of you, I'll tell you, 50 years ago, you weren't here, but 50 years ago or 100 years ago, that's what we did. We sang together. We didn't always sit in front of the screen at night and watch TV. We didn't all have phones. We did things together like sing. And I remember in my childhood, I knew so many stupid songs, but they were happy songs and you sang them together. And when you sing together, you vibrate together, you feel that connection. And that's what we are. So music also is powerful because it helps us feel that sense of oneness that is the truth of who we are. Just like everybody's been talking about. Super consciousness, from that level of super consciousness, we know that we're all one. Music can help us access that and remember that we are one. I'm one with all of you as we're sitting here and talking and listening. You're listening, I'm talking, but we're all one. Music can really help us experience that. So at the Village, what we do, we're from Ananda Village, we've started really consciously, music is like we swim in it, okay? But then we said, let's not just take it for granted. Let's be conscious. So we start our meetings singing a lot of the time. We always sing before meals. We sing when we're having work days. Yeah, so, just making it so music isn't just something you listen to or that is a performance. Bringing it into our day-to-day, everyday lives. And it can be transformative. I think I covered everything.
Yeah, I want to.
Thank you.
I also wanted to add, because this is something that comes up often. Maybe you think that you cannot sing. A lot of people up at Ananda Village, we have this big choir, and we invite everyone to join. And some people, when we invite them, they go, "Oh, but I can't sing." I'll just tell you a secret. Not everyone in the choir can sing. It's okay, because the point is not to be proficient. So much of the music this day is about proficient. I think it's because we have so easy access to YouTube videos where we see the best of the best, the greatest musicians, the greatest singers, the greatest. And so we feel like, oh, I can't possibly compete. Well, it's probably true. But that doesn't mean that you cannot sing and get the benefit of singing. And in fact, Swami, I'm talking about the music of Swami especially, he wrote this music for everyone. He didn't say, oh, I wrote this music so I give the musicians of Ananda something to do. No, he wrote it for everyone. And everyone can benefit from it. So for the reasons that I mentioned earlier of feeling uplifted, for the reasons that Bhagavati mentioned about connection, I can tell you how many times we have choir rehearsal every Tuesday night at Ananda. And so there are some times where I just can't wait to be there. And there are some times when maybe I'm tired and it's like, oh, I can't believe I have this big rehearsal in front of me. But I don't pay too much attention to this thought because I already know from experience that no matter what, every time I go, after I sing, I feel great, to the point that often I cannot sleep because I have so much energy. So it really works. It works week after week, year after year. So it's definitely, so try it. In fact, we're going to try it.
Yeah, we're going to sing another song.
We're going to sing another song.
And Swami wrote so much music. He wrote everything from an oratorio with full choir, orchestra, soloists. It's incredible. We do it every Good Friday. And all the way through instrumentals and folk songs and just so much. But he also wrote children's songs that have sometimes gotten a little bit overlooked because we think, oh, they're children's songs, but they're packed with the spiritual teachings and power, and they're really easy. So we're going to do one, and I'll share the words with you. All the world is my friend when I learn how to share my love, when I stretch out my hand and smile, when I live from above. Now, I don't know the official movements, but I think they go some. Do you know the official movements? You sure? Lakshmi, come help me. Come help me. Somehow I could tell the way she said no, that she really did know.
She slide down in the chair.
Because I'm going to follow you. So basically, show us all the world is my friend. All the world is my friend when I learn how to share my love. There we go. When I stretch out my hand and smile, when I live from above. See, perfect. So let's stand up and do it. Yes. Because I've got my phone.
All the world is my friend when I learn how to share my love, when I stretch out my hand and smile, when I live from above. All the world is my friend when I learn how to share my love, when I stretch out my hand and smile, when I live from above. One more time. All the world is my friend when I learn how to share my love, when I stretch out my hand and smile, when I live from above. When I stretch out my hand and smile, when I live from above. You're so good.
Now, you could do that with your neighbors, your family, right? Wouldn't that be fun? Okay, well, thank you so much. And it's been a great joy to be with you today.
Thank you.
And thank you, Lakshmi.
Thank you. We've got one more speaker for the morning. Preeta will be introducing Shankara, but I just wanted to jump up here and talk about, we're going to be having lunch here in the plaza after Shankara's talk. We have across the plaza, we've got a lovely vendor hall with lots of vendors with their items to share with you. We've got the healing hall over here nearer to registration. We've got a food vendor out in the plaza here. Later this afternoon, we have 2 introduction to meditation classes as well. So if you go through the vendor hall and across the next plaza, you'll find yourself in the meditation rooms. Those classes are happening at does anybody know? There is a class from 2:15 to 3 and another class from 3:15 to 4. So please avail yourselves of those lovely classes. And now I'd like to introduce Preeta, who will be introducing Shankara.
Hello, friends. Our next speaker, as you know, is Nayaswami Shankara. He has been part of Ananda India since 2005, and he co-leads the monastery there, leads many things, Kriya home study program, and just is a really big energy with the work in India. So he will be sharing on attitudes for success, turning failure into success. So let's welcome Shankara.
Thank you, Preeta, and thank you all for staying and not running away for lunch. And I really want to give my gratitude to all of the speakers who have gone before me here. That I'm kind of a little bit of the younger generation, but I've had so many role models that I really follow, look up to, and just appreciate their guidance in my life. And it's not something that's kind of over there, you know, that I read about them in a book or something. It's a life that we live together. And that's really what Ananda is about. It's not just standing up here and talking philosophy. It's living the life together with people who know what they're doing and know how to be really happy and to be spiritual and to be kind and loving. And that's what we're going to talk about today, the attitudes that we need to have in order to face life's challenges, and specifically how we can transform, how we can change failure into success. So let's start with that. A very important thing, if we have failed many times at something, is to never think of ourselves as a failure. That Swami Kriyananda had something of an affirmation, and that was that I have not yet succeeded. So even if you fail 1,000,000 times at something, don't think, well, yeah, I've failed 1,000,000. If you just saw the whole, if you really knew that this just isn't possible, it's always possible. It is. And we can just think to ourselves, okay, I have not yet succeeded. And this is a very obvious attitude, but to have that attitude that we will never give up, that we will never call ourselves a failure, and to just give it that one more try, because we never know exactly when we just try one more time, when that will be the thing that just changes the tides, and then we can become very, very successful. Another very important thing to be successful is that we have to have energy. That if we are low energy people, you're not going to be successful. Somehow it will just always elude us. But if we have lots of energy, then we can learn how to attract success. And this is actually, there's a science, it's a technology. We can learn how to become magnetic so that we can attract whatever we want. And that sounds a little woo-woo, or, you know, can you really attract whatever you want? But again, I've lived with people who live the life. I've seen this in action. In fact, I'll give you a little example in our lives. Devarshi and I, we raised some money to buy a piece of land in India. And when we went there, we were kind of known as the two penniless boys in Chandigarh. And we were saying, well, we feel that Divine Mother, you know, wants us to get this monastery going. And some of our more practical friends were, okay, well, how much do you have in the, you know, how many acres? What? Oh, no, Divine Mother will take care of it. And Divine Mother did take care of it. And that got my wheels kind of spinning. Wow, okay, this magnetism stuff, it's really true. You just, you know, you put your will out there and that energy, and it creates a magnet. And, well, how far can this go, really, you know? How big, how many acres can we really get? And here's a very important part of that. I'll put this in terms of a story from Paramahansa Yogananda, that when he was purchasing Mount Washington, and for those of you who live here, what a blessing, go visit often, receive those vibrations. But when he was purchasing that, someone said to him that he had to get it, I think it was in 3 months, I don't remember the exact details. And they said, you'll never be able to raise that amount of money in 3 months. And he said 3 months to those who think 3 months, or whatever, 3 years to those who think 3 years. But he basically said, I will do it, that it's an attitude of mind, right? And so one of my friends then asked Swami Kriyananda, how far can you take that? Can you say 3 hours for the, you know, the money's just going to drop in your lap, 3 seconds? And Swami Kriyananda said to him, it also must be in tune with God's will. And that's very, very important. And so, yes, have lots of energy. Yes, learn the laws of magnetism, but we also have to harmonize ourselves with a greater energy that we are actually swimming in. I'm so glad almost all of the speakers talked about we are on a path of self-realization. And we want to realize that. But here's the deal, talking about success and failure. We're not going to go from like, I can't do anything. I don't know. It's the world's fault. We know that game. To, oh, yeah, I meditate now, and tomorrow I'm super consciously realized all the time, and everything's perfect. This is a process, and we all are where we are, and we have certain challenges that have been given to us, and we have to figure out how to put out the energy, and as I was saying, learn how to draw on the power of the cosmos in order to put out that energy, in order to overcome the challenges that are given to us. And this becomes a very beautiful attitude, because we can complain about the challenges that are given to us, or we can think, oh my gosh, Divine Mother loves me so much that she has created this exact opportunity. This is the exact thing that I need to learn. And there is no getting out of it. I have a degree in engineering, and I worked on a water treatment plant, building that in Las Vegas before I decided to become a monk. At some point, I just said, I need to go in this direction. Fine. I was building a monastery one day, and I looked down, and I had on, and this was in India, like 15 years later or something. I looked down, and I had on these steel toe boots, and I had this measuring tape, and I was measuring rebar. Oh, what happened? I quit that job. I came to be a monk. Yeah, it's like, what? I thought, there is no escaping our karma. And whatever, we need to learn in this life, that God, he's going to give you that. You can run to the other side of the planet, join a monastery. It doesn't matter. You're going to do whatever it is that you need to learn. And now here's the thing also. It's not really so much, we all have different things that we have to learn. And it doesn't matter what that is. I mean, it just doesn't matter. And I'll tell you a little funny story in a second about that. But whatever your thing is, that's what God's given to you. What matters is, how do we take this? Do we take it with an attitude that's cheerful and that's grateful and loving and peaceful? Or do we fight and say, oh, God. And we're supposed to be fighters. This morning, Davey was talking about, the battle of life. But let's say you watch the Olympics. You watch people who are really good. When they're out there running, they're not making these faces and huffing and puffing. And there's a grace there. There's a flow of energy. And in fact, these great ones, they know it's not their energy that they're running with, that they're connected to something more. It's important to think about what Devarshi was talking about earlier, of where is God? Is God within us? Is God without? That if you think deeply about these things, it becomes part of your self-realization, that there is no separation, that it's all made of energy, and that energy goes out to infinity, and we can learn to channel it calmly, and that we can be fighters. You have to be a fighter, but you can do it very, very calmly and peacefully, and you can hold on to that attitude. And then no matter what comes to knock you down, and it's not even, sometimes life's hard. It's not you who even gets back up. You just pray to the great ones. You say, I don't have the strength to do this anymore, but I know that you can give me the strength to get back up again and to face whatever challenges that you are giving me. And sometimes you can blame him. You, why do you give me this? It's all right. He likes that because you're thinking of him. And the purpose of this life is to think about God all of the time, to get our energy together enough so that we can learn to understand how our level of energy affects our level of consciousness, and how we can raise our level of consciousness and be able to see things as if from above, and see that everything actually, that it is all right. So another thing that I want to talk about is, and Devarshi was talking about this, that you can't get there if you don't know where you're going, that we have to have clarity in our goals. And it's quite fine to set goals that are appropriate for us, but we have to have clarity. Without that crystal clarity, we won't get there. Perhaps we'll set a goal that is too hard, and then we'll fail at it, and we'll fail again and again, and then we'll feel like a failure. But if we work with God, if we pray and we ask, what is this goal? What should be my next goal? And then we really, really know what it is. Then it really just becomes a matter of energy. You just do it again and again. And it also becomes a matter of attunement, that as we put out energy, we learn that it's just a little bit off now, and I just need to change just a little bit more and a little bit more. But, ultimately, that we need to understand, why are all of our challenges given to us? Where are we kind of on this ladder of self-realization? And why? If Shankar is telling me I need to choose wisely in my goals, what kind of goals do you want? This morning, I was in the shower, and I just thought, yeah, this is nice. I get why people get into shower heads. Like, it's enveloping me. It's like a warm embrace. Like, yeah. And then I thought, okay, it's a shower head. Like, what kind of monk am I? What comes of itself, just let it come. And so the thing is, we could go down I'm going to start researching shower heads, and I'm going to find the best one. And now maybe that's one person's job here. That's fine, But for most of us, we probably don't need to spend, years and years of our life trying to get just that thing right. So we need to think, okay, why am I here? And here's another important thing. I don't know what I am anymore, but I guess I can say we Americans, that we have so much free time to think about what kind of shower head do I want. And how do we use that time? Here's something I've already told a lot of people in LA already, but I had to drive from, I guess it was Reno down here to LA, and it took me 10 hours. And afterwards I thought, I had to sit there for 10 hours with concentration. No mishaps, no crash the car and die. Focus, 10 hours, sit there. But now if someone says, hey, Shankar, let's go meditate for 10 hours. Whoa, meditate for 10 hours. Probably everybody here just about could drive up to Reno for 10 hours. But then we think, well, but, meditate sit there with concentration for, but we can do it. The reason is we don't have that motivation. There was a motivation for me to come here and see all of you in LA, but most of us probably haven't touched in deep enough yet in order to know that there is something so great inside of us. There's a recording of Ram's voice. You are more, in his deep voice, so much more. I think of that all the time, that you are so much more. All of us, we are so much more, but we haven't gone in deep enough yet. And so we have to see life as directional, and that everything that we're doing, that it's stepping stones for us to go within and learn how to have that energy. And even once we have a lot of energy, what are we going to do with it? We need to learn to sit down and dive that energy in again and again, deeper and deeper, and plumb the depths and figure out who we are. And once we figure that out, at the end, and Swamiji would say this all the time, it is not like climbing Mount Everest, where it gets higher and higher and harder and harder, and you need oxygen and people to help you carry stuff and whatever. As we start progressing on the spiritual path, it gets easier and easier, that there's more and more joy. We look out and we say everything's just exactly how it's supposed to be. The flowers, it looks like there's some kind of astral light behind them, and it's just absolutely beautiful, and it sounds like the birds are just singing for God, and everything just gets, and it goes on, and it gets more and more wonderful. And again, I don't want you to take my word for that. Associate with all of the great people in Ananda who also have that, but then go within. Do this science yourself. Do the work. This is the one thing it is worth working at. And we distract ourselves with so many other things. But if we can do that, if we go deep enough within, even once we have a deep meditation, you say, whoa, it's true that there is joy within, then we can use that as an attitude that as we go through this battle of life and as we have failures and successes or whatever, that that we can go tap back into that inner joy on the inside and then use that to accomplish whatever it is that we need to accomplish on the outside. I don't see him here, but my friend Narayan, he used to work on Wall Street, and he would tell me there was a saying that they had on Wall Street, and that is, the trend is your friend. That the market is always going up and down, but you want to see, okay, but what's the overall long trend? Where are we going to end up here? And that's also a very important attitude to have, and it's always going to be success and failure. Sometimes I call this whole thing called life the 50-50 game. That sometimes it's going to be fun, sometimes it's going to be not so much fun, sometimes hot, cold. And so it's not, does it oscillate? It's because it's always going to oscillate. It's, where is this all going? Where's the trend of all of this oscillation? And the trend needs to be to get to a place with inside ourselves where it doesn't oscillate. In the Bible, it says, be still and know that I am God. And that means for you to know that you are God. And when I say that now, then people might, I mean, I'm kind of a nice guy, but me, God, I don't mean it that way. I mean it that you are the ocean of energy, of bliss, love, light, joy, and that ocean is manifesting through you. And it's our job to become self-realized and to remember that and to live that life. And then we will climb this. We will get to a point like Paramahansa Yogananda. He could change the outside however he wanted. Of course, he wouldn't do it how he wanted. He was 100. If God wants it, all right. But don't doubt that that's your future. You are one with God. We've kind of forgotten it a little bit. We're dusting it off. We're climbing this ladder back again to learn how to be successful at whatever we want, so that we then can become the most successful at the most important game in town of becoming successful in self-realization, so that then whatever's going on the outside, that Master will give us the strength either to change it or to accept it as it is. And of course, some of you might know this, the wisdom to know the difference. Does God want us to change it, or does God just want us to say, it's all right? And imagine being able to have the power to whatever's going on to 100% be able to say, it's all right, just as it should be. I can accept it as it is. Or to flip it 100%, that needs changing, and the power of God is within, and we can change this. And both of those are your destiny. You will fulfill it. I'm going to let you guys have lunch now. It was such a joy to be here with all of you. It's a joy to be walking this spiritual path together with so many wonderful friends and Guru Bhais. Thank you.
Thank you, Shankara. Thank you, everybody, all of the speakers this morning. It is yes. We will break for lunch, but at 1:30 sharp, we will be back here for a musical slideshow with Ram and Chandra. And then after that, we will have a yoga class and a sound bath. And then later this evening, our keynote speaker with Nayaswami's Jyotish and Devi. Meanwhile, please visit our vendors, visit our health healing hall, look at the meditation classes later this afternoon, and have a blessed lunch.